Most people seem to have the idea that the blueprint for a perfect life involves having children of your own and being able to raise a family. Honestly, I wouldn't mind having a kid of my own one day. Somebody that looks like me, talks like me. We could flick up in Chinese reps together. They could bring me a Cutwater before they go to school. Life could be perfect. That being said, I'm currently 21 years old. There is no way that I want kids right now. Absolutely not. F that. I'm currently on my 4th gap year since graduating high school, but guys, my life is just getting started. And thankfully, I'm not the only one not having kids at an early age. If you go on TikTok or Instagram Reels, there's almost endless videos of people in Gen Z talking about how they don't want to have kids. And it's not just people saying that they don't want to have kids at a young age. No, it's people saying they don't want to become a parent at all in their life. The truth is, Gen Z is having significantly less kids than any other generation before. And I'm not just basing this off of random posts I've seen online. No, there are studies and statistics done to prove that this is the case. Currently, Gen Z is having 50% less children than people back in the 1950s. To put this into perspective, only 1 in 10 people are currently having children before the age of 23, which is insanely different to what was the reality back in the 1970s, where the average age where you would become a full-time mother is 21 years old. Back then, you could buy a house, get married, have a family, and have another family in Korea and be able to support both of them with ease in your early 20s. Compare that with today's day and age, bro, you'd be lucky if a box of diapers doesn't put you into debt. According to this study done in 2025, if you're taking everything into account, such as education, medical expenses, extra housing, food, everything, the average cost per year to raise a child in the United States is $27,743. If you feel like doing a little bit of mental math, you're better than me because I'm going to use a calculator for this. If you take this number and divide it by 12, the average cost is $2,311. Oof. That's a relief. If it was even just 91 cents over, I'd be in financial ruin. I'd probably kill myself. I feel it's appropriate to remind you that this ludicrous amount of money isn't just covering the entire bloodline. Oh, no. This is per child, which means if you have 3 kids, you're spending almost 100 grand every single year. Yo, if I'm paying 100 bands a year, yeah, they better fucking retire me before I get my first colonoscopy. That is ridiculous. $2,300 a month, by the way, is more expensive than what people are paying for rent. Yeesh, everything's getting pretty expensive. But thankfully, the wildly abundant average salary of $66,000 is gonna cover most of the cost. Yeah, man, there's just no way it's possible to be able to afford a kid at a young age. Like I mentioned earlier, older generations were having kids when they were young as bro, even in the early 2000s. I'm currently the same age that my mom was when she gave birth to me. You know, I'm not even brave enough to go swimming too far into a lake because I'm scared a fish is gonna brush up against my leg. You think I'd be brave enough to raise a kid on my own? Of course, like they do with everything, older generations are getting angry at younger people for not wanting to have kids and calling it selfish. Whoa, hold your horses. You want to know what is selfish? Owning nearly half of the available real estate despite only being a fraction of the population. Most young people can't afford a place to live because of how expensive real estate has gotten. Yes, although it is true they bought multiple different houses across the country and didn't sell them until they each hit $3 million in value. Guys, when you really think about it, you're selfish for not wanting to have kids. I don't know, man. I find it kind of hypocritical that the people who are calling you selfish for not wanting to bring a kid into a world of shitty circumstances are also at the same time the ones benefiting from these shitty circumstances. These wrinkled old prunes will look you dead in the eye and act all surprised when you say you don't want to have kids as if they aren't the reason. Boy, slow down. There's so many videos of people interviewing seniors asking how much they bought their house for, and if they don't say the honest answer, which is like $12, they end up crashing out and saying, it's none of your business.
How much did you pay for your first house?
None of your business.
I'm sorry?
I'm going to call the police unless you leave me alone. Do you understand?
Sure, I guess it's none of my business, but at the same time, how is it your business whether I want to have kids or not? A common argument that I've seen before is, oh, well, they're just going to make the world a better place. Son, are we being fucking serious? That is the worst lie and the biggest cope I've ever heard in my life. If you care so much about making sure that the world becomes a better place and ensuring that younger generations have a good life, maybe they wouldn't have bought 4 different houses across across the country and sold them as soon as they 10x'd in value. Also, if I were to have kids today, by the time they become actual functioning members of society, these people would have been long gone already. Also, listen, cost isn't the only factor. Obviously, yes, it's a big part of it. $100,000 a year? Yeesh. That's just a wee bit steep. But I feel another factor to why people aren't having kids is the amount of added stress. People seem to forget that you're raising an actual human being and your decisions are just going to affect their life and the way that they carry about themselves in the world. The way that you treat them, the way that you act around them, towards them, with other people in their presence, it's like a constant security camera. Also, I don't blame people for not wanting to have kids in their early 20s. I don't think you're a bad person for not wanting to sacrifice a huge chunk of your life to raise another human being. I know a few people in my age group, people that I went to high school with, who have already had kids. I know somebody younger than me who has had a kid already. And I'm not gonna lie to you, sports fans, from everything I've been able to see, having a kid at a young age, I don't think that's my cup of tea. Shit, I'm not even sure if it's their cup of tea. This one guy I went to school with recently posted on his Snapchat story that he was pissed he had to spend his money taking care of his kid instead of on NBA 2K. When you're in your 20s, your life is just getting started and you yourself are still finding your way around the world. You expect people to give that up to raise somebody who's just gonna shit and piss and cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars? The second you have a kid, everything you got going on in your life immediately halts. You can't go to the club anymore every Saturday night and go around. What I imagine some people in their early 20s are doing, they're spending all their money on things like clothes, DoorDash, geek bars, and just blowing their money away. Fucking literally blowing their money away, if you catch my drift. The days where you would dedicate your time playing random Steam games, spending money on overpriced McDonald's from DoorDash, going for little adventures in the snow. The second you have a kid, that fairy tale is completely over. Now you actually gotta start doing things like budgeting to see if you're even gonna be able to afford baby formula. You gotta start spending a ridiculous amount of money on things like Gerber baby food, which if you take a look at it, is just a pureed meal. You wanna know how much a jar of beef bolognese Gerber baby food puree is? $3.50. Are you fucking kidding me? For some spaghetti that you simply threw inside of a blender, I can do that myself. The only thing that you share in common with your past life and your current life with a kid is that you still can spend money on clothes. But then immediately the fun is ruined because you're not buying clothes for yourself. I don't want to spend $100 on clothes that I'm gonna need to replace in like 3 months because they already got outgrown. Or I could spend $30 on a fake pair of Jordans that I'm just not gonna outgrow. Also, something that I think a lot of people are finally starting to realize, kids are gross, man. Like, really, really fucking gross. I don't even want to imagine what it's like if you go into a daycare and take one of those germ-seeing black lights. I bet the amount of grime and dirt you're gonna see is mortifying. When it comes to things like personal hygiene or anything within that realm, I'm a pretty big germaphobe, so I don't think I'd enjoy too much a bunch of farty kids running around spreading their germs all over the place and coughing. Like, before you're 8 years old, you rarely wash your hands if you ever decide to in the first place. And the only reason I know this is because this information is coming straight from the source. I was a disgusting farty kid who would just never wash his hands and who was super disgusting. Ew. Every time I step outside, I have the news or TMZ always bothering me and asking whether I'm gonna have kids of my own. And, well, I feel I should finally give an answer to that. Yes, I already did have kids of my own. The rumors are true. As a matter of fact, I had 4 of them, but I ended up trading them for a PS5, so no idea where they're at. Hope their life is good, though. Anyways, that's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to follow my Twitter, my Twitch, and my Instagram. Sorry if I sound different. I've been pretty sick. But until then, I will see you guys next week. Bye. Boom, boom,
There must have been an angel by my side. Something heavenly came from above. Look at the skies. It's the color of